Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Pippa. Where are we in the world right now?
We are in Sheffield, where we are performing Showstopper, the improvised musical.
That's exactly right. And this is the Showstopper podcast.
It is indeed. We're fresh off the stage, having just done the kids' show, which was called Little Red Riding Hood Learns a Lesson.
That's right. It was. I really enjoyed. I enjoyed a lot about Little Red Riding Hood Learns Her Lesson, but I particularly enjoyed the fact that she learnt her lesson from a cow poo's poo.
That's right. It was quite, in many ways, quite sort of philosophical. I feel as a piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
That the children would think that the cow's poo would have a poo.
Yeah, I was dazzled by that.
I mean, I suppose maybe for the people listening at home who think we won't be having a sort of small breakdown, that the children lead the entire show, so we have no say in what goes on in the show.
Yeah.
And they demanded that Little Red Riding Hood's best friend was a cowpat called Jeff.
Yeah. We often say like that kids are not very kind of impressed by the idea of improvising. So there's a lot that is quite fun about our adult show that kids just don't care about. What they care about is telling grown-ups to do stupid things. So our kids' version is just exactly that.
Yeah, it's just like 5 grown-ups being told to dance monkey dance by like hundreds of children.
Yeah.
And it's quite delightful, really.
Yeah.
Quite a nice way to spend the afternoon.
It's a beautiful sunny afternoon as well. So the best way is sort of in a kind of enclosed, darkened space with no windows.
That's right. That's how we like to spend sunny days at the show Stop Us.
But we're not just here today, Pippa, to reminisce about the show we've just done.
No, we're here to introduce this week's episode, which is with the wonderful Marcus Brigstock.
Yeah, who is almost like the platonic ideal of a guest for this podcast, in that he does comedy, he does improv, and he does musicals.
Yeah, and he'd just come off Barnum. He'd been doing Barnum at the Chocolate Factory.
It's quite a role.
Quite a role. Amazing, having to do the tightrope walk and all of that jazz. So he was quite sort of fresh from that. We recorded it, in fact, in his house.
Yeah.
And played the piano. Jordan played the actual piano with Marcus Brigstock. Let's have a listen. Well, listeners, we are so excited to introduce our guest for the podcast for this episode. He is a comedian, he is an actor, and his favourite description word, broadcaster. It is Marcus Brigstock!
Hey, Marcus.
Hello. Yes, broadcaster. That's how people started introducing me at the point at which they thought I wasn't very funny anymore. That's what happened. I used to, for years, even on serious programs, they'd go, and we have here comedian Marcus Brigstock, and then on comedy shows, I started being introduced as comedian and broadcaster. It's like, oh, so that's beginning to be over then. Yes.
Now, Marcus, you're quite an interesting character, aren't you?
Well, I hope so. Otherwise, you've booked a bad guest.
Yeah, way to start with a backhanded compliment, Pippa.
Well, what I mean,
What a
just
character.
to turn it into a front hand,
Yeah.
what we want to do, is that you do so many different things, which is probably why people go to broadcaster, because they think, well, that kind of encapsulates
Yeah,
it
that
all.
throws it all in. Yeah. Well, yes. There was no plan when I started out, but when things have come up, regardless of whether I thought I was able or not, I've said yes. Where I can, I've said yes, because you think, well, why not? It's not really up to me to decide whether I'm any good. You know, I really think that's important. Just if someone asks you to do something and you think it's interesting and exciting, it's their fault if you're no good.
That's a great philosophy.
Well, I mean, you have to really, really try, and you have to be honest up front about what's true and what isn't. I mean, to jump straight to it, for years, including when I did the first one, I was absolutely convinced I couldn't sing. And I was offered a lead role in a musical, and I said to them, I can't sing. And I went, this is really sweet of you. They offered me King Arthur in Spamalot. And I went, this is amazing. I'm handed a script written by Monty Python. I would love to, but I can't sing, guys. And they went, okay, walk over to the piano. And the guy at the piano went ding, ding, ding. And then he said, sing those notes. And I went, la, la, la. And they went, you can sing.
Wow.
That's it. That is literally it. You can sing. If you can go la, la, la when we go ding, 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 then that's it. And I went, well, okay, but you're going to have to hold my hand through all of this. And they did. And probably when we opened, I wasn't in great voice, but by the time we were up and running, I was easily good enough at it, So yeah, say yes to things. Then you
Yeah.
end up doing loads of stuff.
That's so interesting because I saw you in Spam a lot and loved it, by the way.
Thank you.
And it's so interesting that when I saw it, I saw you and went, I didn't realize that Marcus did musicals. It never crossed my mind, this is his first big musical.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
that whole process and that whole backstory might not be, even slightly communicated to an audience.
Well, I can tell you a heartbreaking story if you
Yes.
want,
Oh,
which
please.
is
Straight into it.
So when I was probably 12 or something, very fat child, almost a whole sphere of a child, I went away for 2 weeks to do a theatre camp thing, and we did Oliver, and I was Mr Bumble because I was the fat kid. No, nothing wrong with that. Very happy with it. Mr Bumble's fantastic, brilliant part. And so we were a good week into rehearsals when the director said, when Mr Bumble does Boy for Sale, what if he spoke the words in time with the music?
Oh, wow.
What do we think about that? And you could sort of see all the grown-ups looking, going, and then I had to, so they'd play it and I had to go, Boy for Sale. He's going cheap. Only 7 guineas. And as we were rehearsing it, I'd go, boy for sale. He's going cheap. Let's not sing it. Let's just speak it like this. And it just kept happening. They made me speak it. And it did, on the one hand, I sang Oliver, and because that was sort of bouncy enough that it didn't matter. But I did leave there, I think, absolutely convinced that I must not sing. Under any circumstances, I mustn't sing.
And do you have any memory of like what you were doing, and I'm putting inverted commas around this, wrong? Because like you've just said that you clearly can sing, but was it? Yeah.
It just, no, yes, it will have been a placement thing, and I think probably going for notes that I was unconfident about, a complete key change without knowing that had happened. So that, yeah. But I mean, the thing is, I love singing so much, and I still deep down, I still think I'm no good at it. But I mean, I've played Barnum now, and that's a proper sing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's odd. It's odd doing musicals for me, but when they come up, I think, yes, of course I'll do that. Of course.
Well, tell us about Barnum, because in Barnum you obviously had to do the tightrope walk, which meant you had to learn how to walk.
That was mad, and we didn't have long enough. I trained to do the tightrope again and again and again. We were rehearsing. I was going for a singing lesson at 8:30 till 9:30, and then rehearsing 10 till 6 every day, and then going out to the other side of the O2 to wire walk between 7 and 9 every night. This was like for a month. So it was insane. And I was really struggling with the tightrope. I mean, it's so difficult. And then eventually sort of wobbling my way across it. And then I guess a week before we opened, I had a bad fall. I've still got a huge scar on my leg from where I fell onto the wire, because the wire's as thick as your little finger and made of metal, and has to be very, very tight. So it's like a blade, if you're whatever I am, sort of 14, 15 stone, if you fall on it, that's really going to hurt. And if you fall between the legs, it's life-changing.
Yeah.
So I didn't fall between the legs. I fell across my shin down this wire, and it was really bad. So when we opened, I'd made it across the wire a couple of times, but that was it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was terrified. And you can see, producers and stuff going, well, I mean, the main thing is people are seeing you give it a go. And you're thinking, yeah, but this is the end of the first act. Anyway, the way it was structured was that I walk across the wire and I arrive at the other end to meet the woman I'm now having an affair with, Jenny Lind, and the cast move into these extraordinary, beautiful, theatrical, circus-like tableau, holding each other in the air for this grand finale. And the first night I walked across, instead of leaping into that, I heard the cast member nearest me go, Yeah. and the entire cast failed to get into any of their positions and just whoop, jump up and down and applaud, which was amazing. And actually, I ran downstairs afterwards and I'd say about half the cast, including me, were in floods of tears because it was it's such a terrifying thing to do. And weirdly, singing whilst doing it makes it much easier.
Because your focus is somewhere else.
The point where I usually fell was where the lyrics to the song ran out, and I had to do the last sort of 4 meters or so, depending on how far I'd got, which is the point where Michael Crawford started doing sort of balletic lunges and stuff. And you can see, if you watch his Barnum, you can see him going, come on, come on. Come on, come on. And it all looks a bit much. You're thinking, all right, mate, stop milking it. But I have to say, it's physically the most difficult thing I've ever done by miles.
That production was at the Chocolate Factory,
Yes.
of course. And I saw that. And I'd have to say the ensemble guys were
great.
I mean, everyone was great, but I'm always in awe of the ensemble guys because they never get any individual recognition. There's a group of incredible performers, and their tableaus were amazing. Their acrobatics were incredible,
and they were having to fit in these big circus moves into a tiny space.
Yeah.
There was one guy was juggling knives, and I think we were only open a week or something, and a woman screamed at him from the front row, "Get away, get away." Because he had no choice but to be very close to her while he was juggling these knives. No, they were stunning. And also, the Chocolate Factory is quite an amazing theatre when you look at what they've put on. And I've seen some of my favourite musicals in there. They really managed to create a family atmosphere in that company. And I mean, the dressing rooms for a big, big company like that were tiny. And downstairs, and no natural light, no air, and all the rest of it. And it was a wonderful experience. And again, when it opened, when I was offered the part, I did go to work straight away on it, always feeling like, well, if nothing else, this is a stretch. Like, this is really hard. And also, I mean, I love it, and I really love him. But Barnum's a very problematic musical. He's, he has an affair halfway through, and you invite the audience to clap when he has his affair. Yeah. Then he's sort of looking a bit bashful, is taken back by Cherry, who arguably shouldn't take him back. He keeps what are referred to then as freaks and animals in his circus. I mean, by modern standards, this is quite a problem.
It's a bit like The Greatest Showman, similarly, obviously, has the same issue. And I think the reason that we struggle with it as a musical is that from the scriptwriter's point of view, is that this is super fun dude, and maybe we don't really want to accept that maybe he's also a bit of a shit.
Yeah, exactly. Although, General Tom Thumb remained Barnum's close friend, and when Barnum went bankrupt, Tom Thumb bailed him out, absolutely loved him. The American Museum was burned down 3 times because he was an anti-slaver. So, he did keep animals and arguably exploited people, but I would say, if we look at it differently now, I would say he was a good guy. Definitely. I loved playing Barnum, and I loved him as a man. I loved what he was trying to do, and they really encouraged me to get into this childlike passion for the American Museum, which was so important to him, genuinely important to him, and eventually the circus and Cherry and all the rest of it. And that's how I saw him, this man boy, really.
So then do you think it's about this complexity? We're so used to good guy, bad guy characters.
Yeah.
That when that musical perhaps was written, it was much more straight down the line. Whereas if Barnum was written now, maybe there'd be more space to actually explore it. Because we don't really explore it, do we? Like you say, we invite the audience to clap, but we don't have his moment where he really ask the audience,
Yeah.
I was thinking this when I saw the Biograph Girl recently. There was a revival at the Finborough Theatre. And this is a musical about D.W. Griffiths, creator of Birth of a Nation. And obviously, incredibly divisive figure. And the musical doesn't essentially doesn't really address any of that. It just because he was also a genius filmmaker and and established so many of the rules of modern cinema and all the rest of it, but then made this horribly racist film. And the way the musical addresses that is by going, yeah, he was an incredible genius. Anyway, that's the end. Goodbye.
Wow,
It's just like it's almost like people. There are obviously many musicals that are sophisticated and interrogate these things, but people are sometimes afraid of using the musical, I think, to get into those uncomfortable places.
Yeah.
It's like, do we want an entertainment that makes you feel good and also is is challenging?
Absolutely. I mean, that the song where Barnum goes across the wire to Jenny Lind. Is really about his right as a man, as he sees it, to have what he wants. Where's the bit for me is really how it begins. And so it's the musical itself is uncritical, but you are asking a lot of the audience, and I like that. I like that it's sort of I like how awkward it is. Actually, I really enjoyed it.
I can't remember if I've told this story on the podcast before, but if I have, you can cut it out. Which was when I went to see Showboat. Showboat's kind of irrelevant actually to this anecdote. That's where I was, and there was an American lady next to me, and we started talking at interval, and she goes to Broadway a lot, and I said, "Oh, I just come back from there. I saw Waitress, which of course is about to open in the West End of London," and she said, "I would not see that show because it has a woman having an affair in it." And I said, "Sorry, what?" And she said, "I don't want to see someone playing out some crass fantasy on a stage. A woman should never have an affair, and that is a bad thing, and it should not be on theatre." And I said, "Well, surely the point of theatre is to explore things that maybe we can question through theatre rather than having to experience it ourselves." And she totally disagreed with me. So there is a world where musicals are just purely for entertainment and should be morally straight down the line.
Yeah. Did she think men could have affairs and that was a suitable subject for musicals?
I wouldn't be surprised. It felt very much like it was the fact that this woman, this woman has an affair, and that someone doesn't want to be confronted with the fact that that's a possibility.
Wow. Awkward. Very awkward. She should not see too many musicals then, because she's definitely going to be quite upset.
Especially affairs tend to be, I'd say 90% of musicals probably have some kind of affair in them.
Yeah.
Or at least run close to that. Yeah. I mean, I've got so many musicals that I love, and probably my favourite changes on a daily basis. My favourite fairly consistently is Sunday in the Park with George, which I saw at the Chocolate Factory and then twice more as it moved on, and that's an amazingly complex character.
Yeah,
George in Act 1 is very, very unlikable, really, but it's so cleverly written that when he says, well, actually his line, "Look, I made a hat where there never was a hat,"
masterpiece,
is a masterpiece, and at the same time, actually, it's very stupid. I mean, he's very recklessly abandoned this woman who absolutely loves him and who he clearly loves to follow this one narrow little obsession. But by the time he says that line, I'm completely on board with him. And I had it as my Twitter bio for the longest time because it's a song about the act of creation, about there was nothing and now there's a thing. Look, I made a hat where there never was a hat.
Yeah.
And Sondheim was obviously very pleased with the lyric because it's what he called his book about how he writes musicals.
Yeah, in fact, both volumes, I think the first one is Finishing the Hat and the second one is called Look, I Made a Hat.
Yeah, exactly. So he knew.
Should maybe just give a little context for anyone who doesn't know Sunday in the Park with George. So this is it's an unusual musical. The first act is it's about the painter Georges Seurat and about him creating his masterpiece, which is what's it called? It's Afternoon on the Ile.
Yeah, on the Ile de Jat.
Yeah. And then suddenly the second act, and it's about his relationship with Dot, the other main character, and his obsession with art and how that compromises his relationship with people. And then the second act suddenly cuts forward into the future, and it's about his grandson and his whole relationship. And this song we're just talking about there is literally as he's in the act of creating. He's finishing off a small detail in the picture, finishing the hat.
And it goes so far into the madness of that.
Yeah.
There's a bit where he says something like, look at this hat, so black to you, so red to me. Because George Sarai used unexpected colours to create the image of a bigger scene. And the hat does seem black, and it is with red paint, and it's very brilliant. And then the second act, as you say, is about the grandson or great-grandson, about how the modern artist now feels stuck in there's nothing to say, there's nothing new to say. And then there's a brilliant line in there as well. There's nothing that hasn't been said. And then he's interrupted. Someone says, but said by you. And that's also something that when I'm writing, I hold very dear, because you can tie yourself in knots trying to make something. It must be new. It must be new. It mustn't be like anything else. And I sort of think, no, just close that out for a second and make the thing that seems right. And if it does overlap too firmly with something else that exists, then change it. But be willing to say it because you haven't said it. It's a brilliant musical.
I've never seen it, but I've heard it obviously loads.
Yeah.
It's on my iPod of dreams. But because I've never seen it, in my head, George is like this guy, one of those guys in a park with who's doing terrible pictures.
Yeah.
And when he's singing "Finishing the Hat," he's literally just painting a hat, and then Bernadette Peters, who's playing Dot, is going, why are you painting that rubbish picture of a hat when you could be hanging out with me? It's a very different musical in my head.
So yours is just a painting of a hat.
It's just a painting of a hat.
Rather than he's
finishing. Yeah, I'm like, I finished the hat, and she's like, we don't need a picture of a hat. Yeah, why don't you come and have dinner?
You've done a whole painting of a hat.
That's it.
I think we're opening the door to the great world of musicals in Pippa's head.
Yes.
But she only knows the cast album, but she's
yeah.
created incredible stories to go along with it.
Yeah. They keep putting various versions. I think they did a concert version of Sunny in the Park with George just recently. But I saw, it happened to be directed by a dear friend of mine who I was at university with, and he's godfather to one of my kids. And, but I saw that version of it was so great and solved. There's a big problem with the second act in that it's awful. There is a really big problem with it, and they I thought completely solved it. So anyway, for people who haven't seen it, this will be long and baffling, won't it? Not for you, Pippa. You've painted it. You've painted it in your own head.
I think Sondheim complicated it.
Well, he does that.
I think that as Marcus has indicated, that is probably very true with that musical.
Yeah.
My version would be for the lady at Showboat, wouldn't it?
Yes.
I've got a hat. I've got a hat.
Nice and simple.
Come and have dinner with me. I've got a hat.
And only I wear the hat. I won't lend it to anyone else. This isn't an affair.
But isn't it only with Sondheim though that you can say this is my favourite musical? The second act is awful in many ways.
Yeah,
that paradox can exist.
Yes, absolutely.
That's true. I feel like that about Company because it's got lots of holes in it, but I just love it. Just when that opening, Barbie, 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 baby.
I remember listening to that, friends of mine playing that or singing that at university, and it angered me. Like, it made me furious because they kept doing it. They kept going, Barbie, Barbie, baby, Barbie. And I said, somebody stop it, that infuriating thing. And then I got to know it, and I liked it. And then I saw it just recently. I saw the new one in the West End.
The one in the West End with the guests we had on one of our last podcasts.
Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. I thought it was brilliant. And weirdly, I can hardly imagine it. So they've, I'm sure people listening know, but they've swapped the genders of lots of of Bobby, but therefore of the people surrounding Bobby. And I can't imagine it the other way round now. I think it would be really strange, the idea of a bloke sort of shagging his way through his 30s and just having these, mind you, I was going to say having these affairs, but he's a bloke, so it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah. It's fine. He's a man. He's a man. He can do what he wants. Yeah, it was so good though.
It was the first show, and that's the first Sondheim I ever saw on a stage, and it was at Questers. So it was actually an amateur, Questers in Ealing, which is a big amateur theatre. So it was an amateur production, but it absolutely blew my mind. They were all fantastic, the actors. But because I'd never seen a musical like that, and it was pre-Showstopper, so it was when, musicals to me were just, hello, I'm a musical, rather than, why is this? Who are these complex characters? How are they questioning life and everything within it? Right? I think it's absolutely
Do you
brilliant.
have that thing when you watch a musical that you really love that, I mean, this is so tossy, but do you have that thing where you're watching a musical and it hurts a bit that you're not in it?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I really genuinely have that often. And, there's no way in a million years that I could sing Javert in Les Mis.
Hey,
There's
if Russell Crowe can have a go, so can you.
Yeah, he had a go, but he definitely didn't sing it. Russell Crowe is actually evidence that that's a good one where I should, if it's offered, say, actually, no, I'm not up to that task. But I look at it and I go, I so want to be doing that.
Yeah.
I so want to be playing that role. But it's weird.
It was a great question, Marcus. Have you got any other parts that you would
There's so
love
many.
to be?
Miss Trunchbull, I would say yes to.
You could do that.
Yes, I think I could.
Yeah,
I think
big
I
time.
could. Although I've now spoken to quite a few female friends of mine who are questioning why on earth it's always a man playing that part. It doesn't seem necessary. There are plenty of women who could do it. And I'm a bit, well, yeah, I know, but it just would be nice if I could do it.
But wouldn't it? But I think it would be really powerful for them to cast a woman, actually, because
Absolutely.
there are
There's-
so many giant, terrifying women. It's like
There's
it's
no
sort
reason
of a
why not now.
suggestion that women can't be terrifying, awful characters.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no reason why not now at all. But I love that part. I think it's hilarious. And I saw, who was the guy who did it first? Bertie Carvel. And that was one I looked at, and it made me a bit sad at how brilliantly he had done it and how far he'd managed to go with these delicate little moves that this enormous character makes. So that one,
I thought it was incredible the way he played that part, in that he, that he occupied this absolute kind of this monster, and yet, as you say, he was so delicate and unafraid to be actually very feminine whilst playing. It. I thought was just marvelous.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was so great. And I love that musical. I think it's brilliantly complex, paints some really nuanced ideas for kids, particularly the idea about changing your own narrative, which is something that I think is very important, that you're not stuck in a single groove, regardless of what's happened to you. There are so many ways out, and that art and stories are the beginnings of your ways out of things that are difficult. I love it. Greaseball, obviously. I saw Starlight Express, I would think 10 times, maybe more.
Wow.
Maybe more. The first time I saw it was when it was at the Victoria Palace when it opened, and we got seats inside the track.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, I remember it, and I remember thinking, oh, this is strange. And I remember them skating round the back of us, and my mind just being blown by it. I was like, this is dangerous. This is definitely dangerous. There are people moving at what seemed to me at that time very high speeds, 70 or 80 miles per hour around. And I loved it so much and so wanted to play Greaseball. And then Mark Walker, the comedian who I got to know really well, just happened to mention one time when I was gigging with him that he'd played Greaseball for about 4 years, and I couldn't really speak. Yeah.
Wow.
It's such a shame with Starlight that it, at it's really stuck. You can't do much with it. Steam, electric, all the female wagons or whatever they are, carriages, are really problematic now. It's dead. There's no life for it, sadly. But God, I loved it.
So I remember
so
going to see it, but I
exciting.
don't remember anything about it. And then I was at a cabaret, and the cabaret singer said, and now I'm going to sing everybody's favourite song from Starlight Express. And it wasn't the main theme, and no one knew any of the songs. So I wondered what world he lived in, where everyone has a favourite Starlight Express song, because I actually genuinely couldn't mention a song to you other than
AC/DC, It's Okay by Me.
Great song.
Lovely song.
Great song.
Would you be in it, Andrew?
One rock and roll too many.
I mean, my roller skating isn't up to par.
You
but,
see,
you know.
mine is.
Are you good at roller
really?
skating?
I'm really good at roller skating.
Why don't you do a one-man
in that
Starlight
I can
Express?
go backwards.
Wow.
I can do jumps and stuff like that.
Surely next year's Edinburgh show, there's something
One
in
man
there.
Starlight
Yeah,
Express.
I think that
it's
would be
up.
fantastic. There must have been so many accidents on that show.
Yes, I don't know actually. I mean, Mark never got injured when he did Greaseball. Adam, I've worked with a fair few people who've been in it now. I don't know actually. I mean, there must have been.
There must have been. You can't have an entire musical on roller skates and not have an. I mean, Cat wasn't in Cats when Cats opened. Wasn't wasn't Dame Judi Dench supposed to be in it, and her ankle broke or something.
Sometimes big actors
Have accidents
just before a thing opens that doesn't turn out to be that great. I mean, Cats was well loved. I remember going to see that as a kid. So my parents took us to see every single Andrew Lloyd Webber musical. I was absolutely raised on those as a kid, and I'm very thankful for that. And I'm always a bit surprised when people are sniffy about Andrew Lloyd Webber as a writer. I think most of his work is fantastic. But I did go and see Cats, and I'm not a cat person, and I didn't even the first time I saw it, I was like, yeah, it's all right. It's okay.
I'm not a fan of Cats. I think it's a terrible, terrible musical.
Do you? Oh, thank God.
I don't find it fun. But Dame Judi Dench would have been Elaine Page. Elaine Page stepped in.
Yeah.
But imagine Dame Judi Dench, singing Memory. I think would be great. She would have done her speak singing, but it would have been good.
Her speak singing is great. I saw,
and it's all because she played Mr Bumble. Do you know that when she was?
Oh, well, there you go. And they put her on a great track. I saw Judi Dench in a little night music at the National years ago, and I don't think I really liked it very much, but I do remember her singing "Send in the Clowns" and thinking, "Oh, blimey, that's a bit good." It probably helps that I already knew the song a bit,
I always think she sings like she smokes 40 a day, but
Yes.
she's the person that you could least imagine smoking 40 a day. You would not expect to see her outside the stage door with the Marlboro Red in her hand.
Yeah. It's amazing how adaptable that song is, I think. I'm a big fan of Chet Baker, the trumpeter, and he did a run of shows at Ronnie Scott's with various musicians coming to join him, Elvis Costello and a few others. And there's film footage of it, of Van Morrison singing "Send in the Clowns" while Chet Baker plays trumpet.
Wow.
It's really, I absolutely love it. And Van Morrison doesn't know the words. He's got them written down. I mean, the words to that, they're not very difficult. He's got them written down and even then sort of messes them up a bit. But yeah.
Have you heard Grace
great.
Jones singing "Send in the Clowns"?
What?
That is amazing.
Stop the track.
It's quite
Are you
something.
serious?
Yeah, it starts with the kind of circus dang, 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 la, la, kind of music, and then it goes, "Isn't it rich to gunga, and we a pair."
Wow.
It's absolutely fantastic. I had it as my exit music in Edinburgh one year because it was just the most
That's
brilliantly
so
weird
cool.
song I'd ever heard.
So the remit of our podcast here is musicals, comedy, and improv. And Marcus, you are a triple threat when it comes to that.
You're too kind.
Yeah. So maybe, what are your thoughts on improvisation?
I really love the mindset that you have to get into. And when you're really, really in it, there are a few things that connect you to other performers as completely as that does. You know? And sometimes the mindset eludes you a little bit, and then you're a bit, improvisers say it, in your head, for example, trying to find the right answer, trying to find the right thing. But I adore that thing of not only hearing someone else say something without any knowledge of what they're going to say, but hearing yourself say something without any knowledge of how you arrived at that. That's such a treat.
Yeah.
And it happens in stand-up, actually. It happens not very often in stand-up, but sometimes in stand-up where something will happen and you'll find yourself saying an entire sentence of really well-crafted material that you haven't crafted, you haven't written. And it's come from somewhere in your brain that's like firing on these cylinders. It's like finding it's like a treasure map in your head, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find, I mean, this is a question that I often get asked and I find it annoying. So I'm going to ask it you. Which do you prefer, stand-up or improv? Or have you found that the improv's helped your stand-up in any way?
Oh, improv's helped my stand-up massively, massively. In fact, Paul Foxcroft and I, who we do There Will Be Cake with Rachel Paris, my fiancée. Paul and I are devising a course for stand-ups using improv to develop stand-up, which is absolutely how I write my stand-up shows. So I write skeletons, build a bit of scaffolding for an idea, and then just go out and improvise it again and again and again and again until I find a version of it that I think reflects what the intention was to begin with. In terms of which I prefer, I don't actually. I don't prefer one or the other. I mean, a given night, stand-up is the best thing in the world, and on another given night, an improv show with friends. Oh, now I say it, I think I do prefer improv. It's so much less lonely.
Well, that's the thing. I think the loneliness is a big part of it. I should just say that. So that the show is There Will Be Cake,
Yes.
which is myself, Marcus, Rachel Paris, and Paul Foxcroft. And so you kind of just threw us all together, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I've worked with all of you in different forms, and we've had some fun.
In fact, my first professional improv tour was with you, wasn't it? Was
Totally Looped. Totally
the
Looped.
huge success you all remember and fondly went to on our regional tour in number one venues.
What a waste of a wonderful idea. It came from, Totally Looped came from an American improv format where I think some guys in a small improv club had devised a thing where they played movies on the screen and they lip-synced their own parts, lip-synced their own characters imposed over this thing. And you could see them, and you could see their microphones, and you could see the workings and see the mess. And I saw, you must have seen it as well, like video footage of one of their shows. And
Yeah,
it was
funny.
this outrageously funny thing. And then we did a tour, and I can see absolutely why they did what they did. So they set it up like a panel show with sort of panel show desks and a sort of famous celeb type character to come in and be the ticket sales, Phil Jupiter, Sanjeev Bhaskar,
Marcus
me,
Brigstock.
various. Sorry, I just whacked the table as I said that in panic. And I can see why they were trying to make it more of a show that you could tour, but it completely killed it. And also, they did tell us that they had thousands of films to choose from, and then when the tour began, there were about 8 that they'd
We had to
successfully
revoice
cleared.
the same ones every single night.
Yeah.
And so this was the 15th time you've revoiced. What's her name? Shirley Temple. It was Shirley Temple on the bus. A very famous film clip, and but also because they asked the audience for the setting, so it would also be it's an alien on a mountain
Yeah.
bike, and then it would be a nun in a church in the film.
Yeah, there was no way of joining it up, and it
No.
wasn't. I remember because I hadn't done tons of improv by then. I remember thinking, I'm letting them down. I'm doing this badly, and I'm supposed to be, I'm like the famous guy they've booked who's supposed to glue this together. I remember looking like we got on like a house on fire early doors because we'd look across and be like, this is very bad.
I suppose everyone on that tour was employed to do the thing that they do best, and none of us could do what we
Yeah.
did best well.
Yeah, exactly.
it was painful, but
Yeah.
but
But no, I do. I mean, I love stand-up. Stand-up's a bit, it's a massive buzz. It's a huge rush when you write a stand-up show and you sort of bash the sides in until it looks roughly like the thing you think it's going to be. And then you keep going with that. And then there's a day when you do it and all of it clicks and it all comes together. And there is this sort of massive ego-driven, very intense feeling of you being this sort of very powerful character where everything that's happening in the room is because you've done it all on your own. It's this very sort of selfish feeling, which is very intoxicating, and I still really, really enjoy it. And I really enjoy seeing comics working like that and seeing just one person firing on all cylinders. It's really magical. But very often I'll tour and I'll do a 2-hour tour show and then spend 22 hours completely alone. And the only thing you say to a stranger is, yes, table for one, thank you. And you read Twitter and newspapers, and then sort of go to the next venue where this rush of self-congratulation happens again. And I think it's really bad for you. So improv, counter to that, is all about other people. It's all about other people and being a part of, rather than that solo thing. And sometimes I bring a stand-up mentality to it, that like sharp elbowed thing, but it doesn't last long because I've been lucky enough to improvise with very good people. You go, oh, right, okay, I'm now because you're very, very funny, or whatever it may be. I love how shared it is. And with the audience too, I mean, that feeling I got with my friend James when we saw the Comedy Store Players, and the first time we dared shout something out, and then they acted it out. And I remember what it was too.
What was it?
Well, at the time, was it France or America? Doesn't matter. Had been nuclear testing on an atoll in the South Pacific, and they asked for a location, and I shouted an atoll in the South Pacific, and they took it, and I was like, oh, it's real.
Yeah,
it's real, because I said it, and then they did it, and it's real. And we both went out, and James was like, I can't believe they took your thing. That was amazing. Oh, wow. That was such a magical feeling. So, yeah.
I was talking to a guy after our show the other day, and he had a very similar reaction to what you were describing there. And he said, what I can't get over is that show was just for us.
Oh, yes.
In this room.
Yes,
That's so
absolutely.
important, I think.
Absolutely. And actually, I think that stand-up at its best is like that too. Even though there's an artifice there that what the comedian is saying is being said for the first time, it's usually presented like that. Even though everybody knows it's written, there is this sort of feeling like this is only happening because you're here and all the rest of it. And I think stand-up's definitely capable of doing that. And also, certainly in my shows and most of the comedians who I enjoy the most, something happens every time they perform that is just on that night and just in that moment. I used to hang out with Ross Noble a lot. We always shared flats in Edinburgh. And I remember going to see Ross's shows, which were actually, there was tons of writing there. And I remember he used to get quite cross that all his reviews said, this freewheeling, completely made up thing. And you go, no, I spent ages writing that. Although, of course, he's a Geordie. But he would weave stuff out of nowhere. And I'm enchanted by that. It's weird because I don't like magic. I've never enjoyed magic. I find it really troubling. Stop it. I feel tricked. But I do feel with improv and stand-up at its best, something magic's happened. Like something's been plucked out of the air.
Well, so you're an improviser and you've been in musicals.
Yes.
Maybe it's time for us to improvise a song together.
Yeah, I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous. We'll look after you. Do you have a favourite musical style?
Oh, man. No, you think of one.
Okay.
What's your fave?
Cabaret.
All right.
Well, what's it about,
what is it
Pippa?
about? It's about putting money in a piggy bank.
Look at the little piggy I have here for you. You could put coin in, just one or two. This is my piggy bank, and it is to fill up. Put a coin in, we will see what happens. Hurrah!
Coin in the piggy and see it grow full. Coin in the piggy somehow. Coin in the piggy and see it grow full, and we'll go out on the town.
When we've saved all the coins in the pig, I will take you out and maybe buy you a fig.
And when its curly tail is waggling, saying, I'm full, you'll know what to do. With a coin in the piggy and see it grow full. Coin in the piggy somehow. in the piggy and see it grow full, and we'll go out on the town. Coin in the piggy and see it grow full. Coin in the piggy somehow. Coin in the piggy and see it grow full, and we'll go out on the town.
Yes.
Hey.
That could be
Lovely.
from like the children's edition, couldn't it?
Cabaret, the children's
An
edition.
introduction to Cabaret.
Money, money, money is too much for kids, so
Yeah.
we'll do the piggy bank version.
Yeah.
I love it.
That was super fun.
That was Marcus Brigstock.
Oh, that was such a lovely morning, just hanging out with you guys.
He has such a thoughtful and philosophical approach to musicals as well. Like I didn't expect him to be quite so into like Sunday in the Park with George and all of those musicals that he loves. And he's really like, suddenly to hear him talk so passionately about them is really interesting, I thought.
Well, it's funny, isn't it, when a famous suddenly gets put in a different genre of work, the assumption is, oh, they've just been put in because they're famous. But actually, his love of musical theatre runs deep.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wonderful. Well, we hope you listened. You listened. You did listen.
You definitely listened. I
were
mean, if you're
there.
listening just to this bit and you didn't see the rest of the episode, I don't know what to do with you.
Really promise, rewind. There's better bits than this bit. But if you enjoyed it, we'd love it if you gave us a lovely 5-star rating.
Yes, and maybe a little review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
That would be great. And you can, of course, follow us on Twitter at The Showstoppers and Instagram at Showstopper Musical.
And you can search for us on Facebook, and you can look at our website, showstopperthemusical.com.
You can also Google anything you want because that is the service they provide.
Yeah, you're completely free to do that. But if you can make sure at least 50% of your internet traffic is something to do with us, we'd be very
It would be
happy.
really helpful for us. Maybe we should go and make up a musical.
Yeah, let's do that.
Bye.
Bye.